All right, Module 5, and we're talking about the dark web. Prompt 1. I didn't know very much about the dark web. And other than it's like this place that no one knows how to access. And I've learned that that's really not true. But I think, I learned that the internet is divided into 3 parts: surface, deep, and dark. That there is this clinical assumption that the dark web is this fringe, like highly technical space only used by, computer whizzes. But the reality is the dark web functions as, this digital black market phenomenon, as the reading describes it. So, providing a global private space for unregulated exchange of illicit substances like narcotics and medicine, that can look and operate just like mainstream retail platforms like Amazon or eBay. Is so surprising. I think, like, understanding just how good the counterfeit market is. But I've seen that myself even on Amazon with products like that is existing in mainstream spaces too. So like, thinking about that then would be in the surface market, or, some of these things are in different, parts of the web. Moving on to the second prompt, learnings, challenging assumptions with clients, and their false confidence. I think learning about the digital, marketplace breaks from that traditional assumption that clients only acquire drugs, through face-to-face, street-level transactions, and that these marketplaces instead use these sophisticated technologies and cryptocurrencies for untraceable transactions. It challenges that assumption that drug access is only limited to local or physical connections. And, really we've learned that there's a global market for it. And, talking with clients, if they come in saying things like, "It's safe," or, they checked the stamp, may reflect their sense of false confidence because, while we know that the dark web does offer them anonymity, it's still a big haven for criminal activity, and counterfeit products. And, law enforcement does address this to a degree, but we also know technology advances much faster than regulations or law enforcement can often keep up with, which makes it even more important, I think, to address the dark web with clients. So we might respond to clients acknowledging the perceived safety of digital anonymity while exploring the reality, that the law works to make it less anonymous on purpose. The third prompt, myths, blind spots, one is about, finding substances on the dark web, can be predicted by a client's age, appearance, or background, or assuming, tech-savvy youth utilize it while older adults may not. That's a common myth, and that is wrong. And, this assumption often goes unexamined because, traditional clinical intake forms often, look at how much a client uses and ignoring how the substance is acquired. And that creates a blind spot. And this is interesting, in my assessments, I use an internship. That question isn't asked, so it's something I could definitely ask about how they get their drugs, or their medications, or, if we're talking about substance use. So, or if we fail to ask the client about their technical abilities online, or the global reach of their supply chain, we don't want to make clients feel unsafe, disclosing, using the dark web, because they may prefer it being private and anonymous. But it's important to challenge these assumptions. And so looking at this fourth prompt, how to intro that with clients and build trust during assessment. It's critical to introduce early in the assessment process with non-judgment to help avoid stigmatizing clients and using labels, while allowing for exploration of these behaviors more openly during early assessment. To help reduce shame and build trust, as a counselor, I can frame the dark web as this phenomenon arising from human need for privacy and secrecy rather than as a criminal pursuit or a criminal act. Reflecting back person-centered theory, centers empathy and non-judgmental acceptance. And so as, the counselor, I could ask a client, or to say, I've been learning about how people use, various digital spaces for privacy. What has your experience been like navigating one of those online websites to meet your needs? Or, CBT lens, which centers, the relationship between beliefs and behaviors. I could ask a client, you mentioned feeling safer using digital platforms for your needs. Could we explore what specific aspects of those sites make you feel protected and what risks you've considered. So I feel like that helps open the door a lot to clients feeling open and safe talking about their experiences through a non-judgmental lens. Thanks.